I'm surrounded by you. Come on. It may feel like you're surrounded, but you're surrounded by him. This is how we fight our battles.
Welcome to JP5 Empowerment Columbus. Woo-hoo! Sweet. So right now is Donna Heath. She's an amazing woman. She has her own ministries, and she's getting ready to get launched herself. And I'll let her share a little bit about that. Welcome. Come just launch us.
Thank you, Trina.
You're amazing, Nina.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This is a lovely place. God has great plans for this church.
Oh, yeah.
Amen.
He does.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you, Pastor Marlon, for opening up and allowing us to be here. And thank you for your faithfulness. Because the Lord says you are faithful. And he has seen your faithfulness, and he's very pleased with you. Yeah, I do have a ministry, and oops, I just knocked something off. You know, I didn't see it coming. I didn't see the ministry coming. It's very interesting how the Lord takes care of things. He does things that sometimes we don't really see. We may be in the process and not realize the process that's taking place. But he's so faithful. He's so good. I'm going to lay this over here because I work with an inner healing and deliverance ministry, and I've been involved in one out of the area, closer to Atlanta, for about 3 years now. But I'm just launching one in Fortson, and it's called The Voice Ministries. And so I named it that. The Lord actually gave me that name because for most of my life, I really didn't speak up for myself. Well, that's over. I just want you to know I don't have any problem now. I can talk to anybody. It's very interesting. I really love looking at people's tattoos. And I have found that, they don't mind talking to you about them. You just walk up and say, hey, is it okay? Can I ask you about that tattoo? And they'll say, well, sure. And it's very interesting. The first one that I walked up to, actually, I was just compelled. This man was bussing a table. We were out of town. We were in Macon, Georgia. It was Cracker Barrel. I will never forget. And he was bussing the table, and I had taken a course on tattoo reading. Depends on where you're at, in the country. Do you read tattoos or do you interpret them, And so I was looking, and this guy is bussing the table, and the Lord is just compelling me to go, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. And so he was still doing that, and then he goes away, and he comes back to another table, and I'm like, I know I need to do it. The Lord is just drawing me. I'm like, well, I know I need to, but I'm still a chicken. The spirit of chicken is on me, and I'm like, no. But my husband's getting ready to go, and he's always been the brave one. Oh, but not anymore. When I go to read a tattoo, he hides. So anyway, so I get up. This man is a little further from me. And I'm like, it's do or die. Because I know we're fixing to leave, and we don't live in Macon. And so I get up, and I go, and he's just cleaning the table. I'm like, can I talk to you just a minute? He goes, yeah, sure. I said, can I just ask you about that tattoo that's right there on your arm, on the inside of your arm, there's a key. He said, yeah. He said, well, it's a key to my ex-wife's heart. I said, oh. I said, well, not anymore, it isn't. Because the Lord has a new meaning for that tattoo. See, isn't that interesting that every time he looks at this tattoo on his right arm, see, that's, your right arm is what you're going for. You know, you just shake your hand out, you know. That was the key to his ex-wife's heart. So every time he looked at that, that was failure close to his heart. I said, oh, well, the Lord has a new meaning for that tattoo for you. Because now that represents authority. And you're carrying authority close to your heart. He's like, he just lit up. He was really happy he talked to me that day. I mean, you know, that just changed his whole outlook on life. And here he is, bussing tables. So it changed, you know, you have a different confidence when you find out who you are in Christ. Well, I had a different message for today, but this morning the Lord said, tell the story that only you can tell. And I've noticed that's been the thing today. Everyone has a story. Every one of us, we all have our very own story to tell. And I know with inner healing ministry that I do, there are a lot of us that have a lot of wounds, a lot of pain, and a lot of us have grown up with these pains. And those that have had pain early in childhood, they show up later in life. And I've had people come in that have had abortions in their, teens, early 20s, and they're like 60, and they've carried the shame and guilt and pain all this time. And they can come in and open up for the first time and give it all to Jesus. And Jesus can meet them right there where they are. Right there in that room where everything took place. They can see him and walk through healing. Absolutely amazing. But I didn't come here to tell you that. I came here to share my story. Before I get into my story, I'm going to tell you that I didn't know what PTSD was. I would think PTSD was something that post-traumatic stress disorder. I would have thought that that's just something that, soldiers have that. They come home from the war, and a lot of them come home suffering. Or maybe, our firemen, or our police officers, would suffer with that. Well, there are other people that can suffer with that as well. So I'm going to tell you my story. Probably going to have to look at my notes a little bit so I don't jump ahead of myself, because I tend to do that when I talk about what I'm going to talk about today. So back in October of 2005, I was leading worship at a church in Columbus. And on this particular Sunday, I just felt this real urgency to just resign like that day. I have never, ever felt such an urgency to do anything in my life like I did that day. And I know it was the Holy Spirit that it was such a compelling, such an urgency. I don't know really I can't even describe it or put it into words. It was just such you got to do it now. And things were in place that I could do that. And the pastor was a really good friend and very sweet and very understanding. So I did that day. Well, my son, we have 6 children, my husband and I, and we've been married next month 43 years. So we've homeschooled all of our kids. We are pioneer homeschoolers. So, yeah, we've always been a little on the crazy side, or at least I have been, so, yeah. Anyway, I'm so glad that I did homeschool the kids. And anyway, so Justin, our oldest son, was playing drums for Dwayne and Jody Cresswell, and they were at a church in Hamilton, Georgia. And so, because I had resigned from the church in Columbus, we were able to be with them in Hamilton the following Sunday. And Justin had decided, he had already told us that this was going to be his last Sunday out there playing the drums, because he decided, he was ready to look for a young lady to settle down with. Well, where else do you look for a young lady? A Christian young lady. You look in churches. I'm like, yes, son, that's good. Yes, that's really good. So, we were all for that. And so we thought that was a good idea. So we went out to eat that day after church with them and really celebrated him. And it was just a really good day. In fact, I'm probably going to skip all around, but the last song they played was Blessed Be the Name. It was just a beautiful song by Matt Redman. And Justin was assigned drummer, and he traveled for a little while, and decided that he really didn't like to travel. He liked home. And I like that too. I like him being home. But anyway, so that was on Sunday, October the 30th. The following Saturday was November the 5th, and the steeplechase was in town. Now, his uncles, Rusty's brothers, or one of his brothers, had started taking Justin to the steeplechase years before. And so it was something that he looked forward to. In this particular year, several friends got together and they all met up at steeplechase with Justin. Well, one of the guys that Justin was with, no, I won't go there yet. We got a call. We got a call that night. It was about 11 o'clock, and Rusty's other brother, this brother's a medical doctor, medical surgeon. He called Rusty and he said, I think your son's in trouble. And Justin had just moved out just 2 months earlier, and that was just like 10 minutes down the road. We live out in Harris County. And so he lived right across the street from Cocoa Lake. And so about 10 minutes from us. We didn't know what that meant because Justin had never been in trouble in his life, so, what did that mean? We didn't know. But nothing could have prepared us for what we found when we got there. So when we got there, there were a couple of ambulances there. There was crime scene tape already strung in the area. There were a lot of people there. So when we got there were deputies, of course, there. And we got to the top of the driveway. We saw Justin laying in front of a car at the top of the driveway on the ground. Nobody was with him. He was laying there. They won't let us touch our son. And we're like, well, why aren't you over here? Because he's already gone. He's already dead. My husband is in 1,000 pieces. I'm crying, but I am in shock. And, they won't let us touch him until the coroner gets there. My husband is calling him to come back to life. Well, nothing's happening. God didn't raise him back from the dead. I have never in my life felt so helpless. Never felt so helpless. The coroner's report showed that GHB was the drug that killed him. It's a date rape drug. It's odorless. It's tasteless. Justin had been drinking he had been to Country's earlier that day, and you get the big styrofoam cup. And he was drinking water and eating clean. He was a bodybuilder, so he was really watching what he ate, only drinking water. No alcohol in his system, nothing. The other guys with him, they had alcohol in their system, and they did have GHB in their system. One of the guys that was with Justin had been seen earlier at a guy's car that was a known felon for making the drug and selling it. He had been out on parole, and so the detective came to our house, told me all kind of information that was very hard to take, very hard to listen to, about one of my family members. And close friends, very close friends. And to sit there and listen to the detective give me all this information, knowing, a detective can only get so much information out of people, but he knows that they're not telling him what he knows they know. So anyway, I knew I had to forgive everybody that could help Justin. I had to forgive him. Well, the story doesn't stop there. The day after my son dies, there are two people that were seen breaking in his house. His house had been ransacked. He did have some money that he had stored in his house, and apparently they knew it, so somebody broke in and ransacked his house. And then the day of the funeral, before all this happened, about a week before, maybe 2 weeks before, Justin had bought brand new wheels and put those on his car. So while we were at the funeral, somebody, or a couple of somebodies, were at his house, and they put his car up on blocks and took his wheels. So we came home to find all that out. So I had more people to forgive. So we had no intention of pressing charges. I mean, we didn't have any of that in us. This is what you call put one foot in front of the other to survive. That's where we were at. But I knew I had to forgive every one of these people. The Lord's Prayer talks about forgiveness in Matthew 6:12. And forgive us our sins as we have forgiven those who sin against us. And then there's unlimited forgiveness. In Matthew 18:21 and 22, then Peter came to him and asked, Lord, how often should I forgive someone who sins against me? 7 times? No, not 7 times, Jesus replied, but 70 times 7. Well, well-meaning family and friends would bring up the circumstances and say things that would make me relive the events of my son's death. They meant well. They really did. They really didn't realize what they were doing. But it would just bring it all back up, and I would relive the events all over again. And I just have to go back to the Lord and say, okay, Jesus, you got to help me. You just got to help me. I can't do this. I can't do this alone. You got to help me. I can't. Forgiving all these people, you just got to help me. This is hard. It's so easy to say, just forgive them. That's easy. But really doing it is different. So during this deep time of mourning, this is where the PTSD comes in. Every time I would close my eyes, I would see my son laying on the ground. Every time. And he had aspirated. So every time I saw him, that was what I saw. Every time. Every time. I couldn't sleep. I didn't go to the doctor to get any sleeping pills. I just couldn't sleep. But one afternoon, I decided, it was the middle of the afternoon, I'm just going to go try to lay down and get some sleep. And the Lord sent angels to minister to me. He opened my eyes, my spiritual eyes, and I saw them. There were 4. And these were small. And they brought a blanket, and they laid this blanket over me, and I slept. I just went to sleep. And it was sweet. Hebrews 1:14 speaks of angels as ministering spirits. Well, seeing my son in the way that I did was just very traumatic. And I know I mentioned earlier about the last song I heard him play. It was Blessed Be Your Name. Well, every time I heard this song on the radio, they don't warn you. When I play a song, I just put it on. But every time I would hear this song, I would just fall into a million pieces. Every time. And it would just remind me, I would see him sitting there playing the drums to that song. And it would just sound just like him. I could just sing, but I would fall into a million pieces. I just couldn't take it. I would love it and couldn't take it at the same time. And so it would just set me off. But God's been very patient with me. Very patient. And very sweet. Well, one day I was having my worship time with the Lord, and something happened. All of a sudden, let me back up and say this. During this time, after my son's death, I gave my piano away. I told you about leaving the worship stuff. Well, I didn't think anything about it, but I gave my piano away. Just gave it away. Piano, when you, like Sandy knows, it's like your friend. I've always loved music, especially worship. Worship's my heart. But your piano, it's like your friend, isn't it, Sandy? It's something. Well, I gave it away. One of my other sons had a friend that wanted a piano. I said, yeah, just give it to him. So anyway, one day I was having my time of worship with the Lord, and something very unexpected happened. All of a sudden, I had a download of words. It just hit my spirit. And I thought to myself, I thought to the Lord, I said, Lord, what tune can I put with these words? And the thought came to me, every time I would get around somebody's piano, I had this tune, just this little simple tune. And it would just come to me. And so I had a keyboard by now. And so I went to the keyboard and I played this little tune, and I thought, oh, well, that works. I need a little bit more though to go with it. What else? And it came. And I tried to sing it, but I just snot cried all through it. It's just too much. But the Lord gave me a song. He did. Well, So the music that had died in me, the Lord just gave it back. He gave me a song. And then our pastor's wife, she's over the music ministry at church. And one day she was deciding to change things up at church somehow. She said she was going to write a music curriculum. Would I help her? And I thought, strange you would ask me to do that. You don't know anything about me. And I said, well, yeah, I will. It just kind of came out of my mouth. I didn't really think about it. I just said, yeah. And then I thought about it later, and I thought, well, you don't really know about me. But anyway, I said, yeah. And then before I could ask her, one time when we got together, she said, the Lord just highlighted you. Wow, I've never heard that before. That was news for me. And so anyway, I said, okay. Well, then there was this dinner she was going to have where she was going to introduce this new idea that she had. And, well, before this dinner, something happened to me that has never happened to me before. And that was, I felt like a ton of bricks hit me. And I ended up on the floor of my home. I was in a bucket of tears. And I'm like, okay, Lord, I don't know what you're going to do, but I can't stay here. And I'm not going to stay down. So I had to fight. I had to fight to get up. So I did acts of worship and warfare prayers to make it through that day. This was a major battle, and buddy, I was going to win it. It was a major battle. But I did. I won it. I made it. I made it that night. It was hard, but I made it. So I'm going to fast forward to, I went to a ministry training, and the training was for deliverance. And the training day was on November the 5th. And I told you he died on November the 5th of 2005. So my training day fell on a Saturday, which was a November the 5th. I woke up that day. I want to tell you that your body knows the day when you've been through a traumatic event. Your body knows the score. It does. It knows. It knows it. You don't even have to look at the calendar. Your body knows the season. Your body knows the day. So anyway, I woke up that day, and I was struggling. I couldn't keep it together. I was trying so hard. The lady that was doing this training, her son had died young. He was 30. My son was 24. And so I knew her story. And so this wasn't a surprise to me. I should be able to sit there and handle it, take care of it, be fine. Oh no, not this day. This was not going well for me. I sat there and I could not hold it together. I was uncontrollable. I had people getting up to go get me tissue. I just couldn't function. So, I was just a mess, a real mess. But I want you to know it was a God setup, because I was the one that needed deliverance that day. Demons act up when they know they're on their way out. I was really struggling. And I had been grieving, but the grief would not go away. It had been 12 years. 12 long years. So, on this day, I was delivered of a crushed heart and an accusing spirit. That's how I can stand up here and tell you my story and not cry all over the place. I can actually tell it now. I can actually share. Psalms 147:3 says, He heals the wounds of every shattered heart. Well, when you're healing like this, there are layers. There are just layers, just kind of like an onion, where there's many layers that come off. So there's another trigger that came up. This was in the fall of the year. The change of the season had happened. And it was a dreaded time for me. But there's a minister that comes to town probably once a year at least. And his name is Dr. Mike Hutchings, and he works with Global Ministries. And he goes around doing healing ministry with PTSD. And so he wasn't there at our church this time, but his wife was. And so she was there. I couldn't wait for her message to end. Her message wasn't even on PTSD. It was for women that day, and it was all about the curse being broken from your cycle and menopause and that type of thing. Before she even closed in prayer, I ran up to the front for her to pray for me, and asked for her to pray for those triggers to be removed. So she did. She prayed for the memory triggers over the amygdala, which lays right back here at the base of your neck, the base of your brain. And so she prayed over those memory triggers. And so when she did, so the memories remain, but the pain is removed. And so God did that for me. And so now the changes in the seasons don't bother me. I don't have triggers anymore. So the Lord has been just removing these things, and I've been walking through healing, step by step. And then there was another time that we had a group that came to the church, and they were leading worship. I think this group was from Canada, I believe. And they're singing this song. I love this song. When you walk into the room. You know that song? I love that. Anyway, I'll never forget. So they come in and they're singing this, and then it goes, when you walk into the room, sickness starts to vanish. Every hopeless situation ceases to exist. When you walk into the room, the dead begin to rise, 'cause there is resurrection life in all you do. Well, guess what? We get to resurrection life in all you do. Well, the Lord talked to me right there, because I wasn't singing right there. Because every time I hear about resurrection life, every time I hear about somebody being raised from the dead, which I love Heidi Baker and her ministry, and she's all the time, raising people up from the dead, and I love that. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Praise God for that. But I was having trouble, because my son, I told you earlier, he didn't come back from the dead, and I was mad. And God knew it. And Jesus spoke to me right then. He said, Donna, you're mad at me. You can still love someone and be mad at them. And I told him, yeah, you're right. I am. Every time I would hear that, I'd get this pain right in my gut. You know what I'm talking about? Get this pain in your gut when something isn't quite right. Well, I had that. And the Lord knows us. He knows us so good. And He's been so patient with me. This has been going on for a while. And He's just been so sweet and so loving and so patient. I was trying to get there on my own. I couldn't get there on my own. And I was mad. I was so mad. But sitting in His presence, He spoke to me. And I just broke. And I told Him, yeah, you're right. And I'm so sorry. I choose to trust you. It's a choice. I choose to trust you. You know, how big is our God? I was speaking to someone the other day. How big is your God? How big is he? Do we have him in a box? Well, I know there's still more to come. I can say that my God is faithful and he's true. When you're in the deepest pit, he is there. When you feel all alone, he's there with you. When you feel like you can't take another step, he will help you. When you feel like you can't breathe, he will breathe for you. I didn't count on the pain, but I did count on my Lord. He is always with me. He will sustain you, and he will be with you. Follow him. He knows everything about you. He knows every hair on your head. He knows every word you're going to speak before you even make a sentence. He knows when you laugh. He knows when you cry. He knows when you're faithful. He knows that we're going to mess up even before we mess up, and he's okay with that because he's big enough. He's big enough to cover it. He's all right. He's all right. And he's okay with that. He knows your end from the beginning. And he's got you covered. So, he did give me my joy back. That was something that I had trouble with. My husband would say, early on, he would say, well, I got my joy back. And I'd be like, I just want to slap him. Because I'm like, I don't have my joy. Don't be telling me about yours. But he did. But I can stand here and say, I have my song back. And I have my joy back. And I have a wonderful relationship with my Lord. He is so good. He is so faithful. He is so wonderful. And you know, all of us, we've all shared our stories. And our words are going forth in this place as testimony. And those are words of prophecy. And those words are filling up this building. And they're going forth. That's pretty powerful. Thank you.
I give a praise. This is how I fight my battles. Oh, it may seem like I'm surrounded by you. Come on. It may feel like you're surrounded, but you're surrounded.